It just means wanderer. It just means wanderer, the word planet. And if you're going to talk about planets, and I figured we may as well know the etymological root of the word. It means wanderer. Obviously, they use the term, or they named it wanderer because they noticed that, according to Western historians, they noticed that all the celestial bodies stayed in one place. The stars, they stayed in one place. And then they noticed that the planets moved. So they call them wandering stars or wanderers.
It's a planet.
Hence the term planet. Okay?
Okay.
So now that we have a good introduction on the vocabulary, we should be able to read through the student workbook, statements written in the student workbook, Cycle 1, Level 1, available at lookatoutmovement.com.
Get your home.
We're going to read statements from the student workbook with some knowledge already, some background information already in our heads. And just remember that all of those vocabulary words are subject to pop up in the vocabulary quiz. So, we're just going to touch on 3 issues as it relates to the solar system, to the planets. Now, we are not going to actually talk about the planets themselves, the names of the planets, individual planets, or anything like that in this lesson. We're going to save that for the next lesson. We found that it takes so much time to get a new world view that we never get into the actual schematic. So we're splitting it up, and we're going to deal with the list in the second cycle of this particular lesson. Same thing with the constellations, same thing with the ages. So those that's watching online, or on the DVD, just know that next cycle we're going to clear up the ending part, the part that contained the list. Because like in the constellations, we had a list of constellations that we didn't really get into, and the elements, we had a list of groups of elements that we really didn't get into. So we're not going to try to get to the list tonight. We're going to just go ahead and deal with the whole introduction, give a nice thorough introduction, and then in the next class we're going to deal with the list. Tonight we're going to discuss what is the solar system, okay? And then we're going to challenge by asking the question, are there really modern planets? Is there really a such thing as modern planets? And then we'll do a little brief discussion of the Sirius star. Okay? So, from Wikipedia.org, we have derived a description of the solar system. Okay? And what Wikipedia.org says is the solar system consists of the sun and those celestial bodies bound to it by gravity. The sun's entourage of objects circle it in a nearly flat disk called what?
No, say that again. Say that again.
Yes, sir. The ecliptic plane. The sun's entourage of objects circle it in a nearly flat disk called the ecliptic plane. Most of the mass, which is contained within 8 relatively solitary planets whose orbits are almost circular. The 4 smaller inner planets, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars, also called terrestrial planets, are primarily composed of rock and metal. The 4 outer planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Y'all asked about that. Nobody wrote that down?
I already got it. I already know.
Okay. Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, also called gas giants, are composed largely of hydrogen and helium. Gas giants are composed largely of hydrogen and helium, some says, and are far more massive than the terrestrials.
Oh, you mean like bear?
They're made of hydrogen and helium, and they're way bigger than the terrestrial planets. The solar system is also home to 2 main belts of small bodies. Can anybody tell me what those 2 main belts are?
Kuiper belt, the Kuiper belt, and the astral belt.
Exactly. The asteroid belt lies between Mars and Jupiter.
And the Kuiper belt around the sun and
And the Kuiper belt is around the outside of the heliosphere. The asteroid belt is made up of what?
Metal and
Rock and metal.
Rock.
Terrestrial objects.
And metal. And the Kuiper belt is made up of what?
Ice, like ammonia.
Ice. Ice is like ammonia. Exactly. Okay? And the Kuiper belt lies beyond Neptune's orbit outside of
Yeah,
the
solar system.
heliosphere. Mhm.
So is Pluto inside of the Kuiper belt or outside?
Pluto is inside the Kuiper belt. Within the solar system, various populations of small bodies, such as comets and interplanetary dust, freely travel between these regions, while the solar wind, a flow of plasma from the sun, creates a bubble in the interstellar medium, known as the heliosphere. Does that make sense? Now that we went over the vocab, right? That extends to the edge of the Kuiper belt, the heliosphere. Okay, 6 of the planets and 3 of the dwarf planets are orbited by natural satellites. Everybody get that, right? Usually termed moons after the Earth's moon. Each of the outer planets is encircled by planetary rings of dust and other particles. I meant to mention that. Each of those gas giants has a ring around
Saturn
it.
has the most visible.
Exactly.
And what is that ring?
They're just rings.
Of rock, is it?
The rings of
Gas?
Is it gas or rocks?
dust and other particles.
That's what that is, dust and particles.
Dust and other particles. They really don't know.
And it's inside, it's the wind, so that's why it keeps going like that, because it's inside the
Well, the rings around Saturn are from Saturn's gravity, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The celestial, the Jovian planets, the gas giants, they have a core, and they have somewhat like a solar wind that creates the body itself. What's in the middle of them, nobody knows. But it's obvious that they're not made up of hard matter, at least not from the outside looking in.
Well, how would that be obvious then? What makes that obvious?
Science is way beyond the scope of this discussion. Honestly, I mean, it's just, you know, they determine, I mean, they have a whole science for determining whether something is solid or gaseous in nature or liquid, or whether something is moving towards or away from. They have sciences, you know, visionary sciences that determine all that stuff. But it's been accepted amongst all of the contemporary scientists that that's the case, and it's also been confirmed with ancient knowledge, which we're about to talk about now.
Now, when they say it's not rock, well, when they say it's not solid, this just means it's not terrestrial, which means it's not rock. It's still be solid because ice is a solid, and if it's frozen, then it's solid.
Yeah.
If the core is made up of helium, frozen helium, then it's still made up of a
Then it's
solid.
still solid, but it's not terrestrial.
Right.
It's not rock or
I can
metal.
agree with that, and it might not be rock there, but there's something.
Gotta be
Maybe
something.
just magnetic, just, you know, whatever. But,
Okay. So, are there really modern planets? Y'all think so?
no.
I think they were already discovered.
Yeah,
There was?
yeah.
I think because the planets, when they're orbiting the sun, they don't orbit at the same. They don't stick an arm and go all the way around the sun, right? They just and there's always been this thing in ancient times where once all the planets align, then there's gonna be something that happens when they all align with the sun in that straight out, you know, arm. Then you know, and I hear that in a lot of ancient stories and movies and stuff like that.
Right.
So I can't believe that you think you discovered these planets. Like you
Yeah.
can see them now.
Yep.
But, you know,
They claim.
and that only happens like every couple billion years that all the planets align in that arm like it is on the board. Like that doesn't normally look like that. Like every time we have a picture, that's how the picture looks like. That's
Right.
how they travel around the sun. But
Right.
that's not how they travel around the sun.
Right.
That's why they consider Pluto a planet now because it's so far off orbit. It takes like 4 billion, not billions, but a lot of years to travel. Well, whatever. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. So,
Beyond the scope of this
we don't believe that there are modern planets in this room. Most of the people in this room don't believe. Except for the guy in the back, don't believe.